You've said it so many times that it sounds convincing now. I'm fine, or I'm good, or nothing's wrong. But if you slow down long enough to listen, not just to the words you're saying, but to your body, you may be hearing something different. Because the truth is, you haven't felt anything real in years. You haven't felt joy or sadness or awe or even love. Maybe a flicker here or there, but mostly nothing. Just a quiet, consistent numbness. Like you're underwater and everything emotional is muffled. Like you're alive and you're functioning, but you're not feeling. And that's not peace, that's self-protection. You see, somewhere along the way, you made the decision, maybe without even realizing it, that it wasn't safe to feel. And so you shut it down. And it might have started when you were young, when you were told that boys don't cry, and you learned that anger got punished and sadness got ignored, and you learned to be easy, emotionally like low maintenance and stoic. And so you survived by disappearing, by becoming hyper competent, by becoming productive instead of present, by being a good son, a good employee, a good man. As long as good meant quiet. But there's a cost to this kind of emotional exiling, and it always catches up. Because when you exile one emotion, you're in essence exiling them all. See, you can't numb the sadness and still expect to feel joy. You can't suppress fear without also dulling awe. You can't deaden grief and still expect to feel alive. Now you might think that you're managing well, but you're not managing. You're actually you're disappearing. And you're showing up in the room, but you're not in the room. And people talk to you, but you don't let them in. And even when someone cares, even when someone reaches for you, you feel nothing. Or worse, you feel threatened. Because closeness requires openness, and openness requires feeling. And feeling feels unsafe. And so instead you perform and you smile and you nod and you keep things surface level. You go through the emotions, you show up to work, you answer the texts, you say the right things, but inside, you're not there. Well, not really. You not fully. Like this numbness, it's this slow disconnection from your own aliveness. And it's not laziness per se. It's not dysfunction. I think it's a trauma response. It's what happens when your system has been so overwhelmed, so repeatedly hurt or ignored that it just decides that feeling is dangerous. So let's just shut her down. And at first, it seems to work. You don't cry anymore. You don't get angry. You don't get disappointed. You become the stable one, the unbothered one, the quiet one. But you also stop laughing, and you stop reaching out, and you stop feeling music or sunsets or hugs or the way you used to. You stop feeling like yourself because you're not actually you anymore. You're a version of you that's learned how to survive by disappearing. And this is the version of you that our culture often celebrates. The stoic man, the composed man, the strong, unfazed man. But no one tells you that this version of you, like the one who looks calm on the outside, this version is often the one who's drowning on the inside. Because numbness is not a sign that everything is okay. Numbness is actually a sign that something has shut down. And the longer that it stays shut, the more disconnected you become, not just from other people, but even from your own needs. You forget how to ask for comfort. You forget how to trust tenderness. You forget what it feels like to be held. And instead you start mistaking absence of emotion for control. But you see, control is not connection. You start confusing the ability to stay unfazed with the ability to stay intact. But being intact without feeling is just being invisible to yourself and to others around you. And here's where it gets even more painful. When you emotionally shut down, you don't just lose access to your own feelings, you also lose access to the feelings of those around you as well. And you can't read warmth, you can't feel care, you can't receive love. And even if someone is offering it genuinely or patiently, you're not going to feel it, because the very parts of you that were designed to receive love are basically offline. And things, it's not your fault. It's not because you're broken, not because you're incapable, but it's because your body, your brain, like your nervous system, they've just been trying to protect you. And it learned that when you felt too deeply, you got hurt. And so it shut that channel down entirely. And the world that we are living in, it only reinforces that shutdown, right? You see it in the memes and the jokes and the online posts that say, don't catch feelings or emotions or weakness, or be a man and handle it. Don't be needy. And they all tell the same lie. They, in essence, that to be emotionally alive is to be less of a man. But let's be real. Like, you're not tired because you're weak. You're tired because you've been emotionally starving. And you've been surviving without oxygen. And you've been going through life without letting anything touch you. So it's no wonder that you're exhausted. It's no wonder that you feel distance. No wonder that your relationships feel hollow. Because without emotional presence, even intimacy becomes just another performance. Now, you might be sleeping with someone and in the same way still feel miles away. You might be surrounded by people and still feel utterly alone, because no one can connect to a version of you that you've abandoned. And that's the wound. Not the loneliness itself, but the disconnection from your own heart. So when did you stop listening to it? When did you decide that it was too much? When did you trade your emotions for acceptability? Was it the first time that you were told to man up? Was it the moment that someone dismissed your tears? Was it the breakup that you never grieved? Was it the father who never asked how you were feeling? Or was it the moment that you were touched without consent, or laughed when you shared? See, these wounds don't just teach pain. They taught you to numb and to hide and to edit yourself into a version that wouldn't be rejected. But the cost of that safety is that you can't feel joy anymore. And you can't feel anything really fully. And that is no way to live. You weren't made to be numb. You weren't made to hide behind this fineness, if you will. You weren't made to float through life detached from your sense of aliveness. No. You were made to feel, to cry and still be held, to ache and still be accepted, to be real and still belong. But no one taught you how. And so you taught yourself to disappear. And the tragedy is that it worked. You made yourself acceptable, you made yourself unbothered, you made yourself fine. But in that process, you lost the very parts of you that made you human. So now what? If you've spent years learning how not to feel, how do you begin again? How do you go from numb to real? From disconnected to alive? From saying, I'm fine, to actually being okay genuinely? Well, it starts not with force and not with fixing, but with permission. So you give yourself permission to feel. Now, not everything all at once, and not with perfect language or full control, but gently, tenderly, one breath at a time. And at first, it might not feel like anything, which is okay. See, after years of shutdown, your body may need some time to believe that you're actually safe enough to feel again. And you might feel frustrated, and you might be thinking, why can't I just cry already? Or why don't I feel love even when I know that someone cares about me? That's not failure. That's the residue of the survival, right? Your numbness was never apathy. Your numbness was grief without a container of sorts. It was pain without a witness, or emotion that didn't have language to express. And now you're giving it what it never had, and that is you're giving it your presence. You're not analyzing it, you're not judging it, you're just being with it. This is what emotional re-entry looks like. It's small, it's subtle, it's easily missed if you're looking for the fireworks. And it might be the first time that you notice the tightness in your chest, or the first time that you let yourself cry for a minute before wiping the tears away. The first time that you say, I don't actually know how I feel right now, but I want to. That's not weakness. That's courageous. See, you've been taught that strength means control. But real strength is staying present when everything in you wants to run. And presence is where intimacy lives. See, you can't hold real love on top of numbness. You can't build trust on top of suppression. And you can't build belonging on top of, I'm fine. You can only build from what's true. So if your truth today is, I'm actually scared to feel, that's enough. If your truth is, I don't know what I feel, that's enough. If your truth is, I'm just tired of pretending that I'm okay, listen, that's more than enough, because the truth is the first step toward freedom. And here's what happens when you start living from your emotional truth, however messy it is, however incomplete. And that is, you begin to thaw. You start noticing things again. You notice maybe the way that music hits you, or the lump in your throat when someone shows you care, the ache in your gut when you remember a moment that when you buried it. And so you stop reacting and you start responding. So instead of exploding in rage, you pause and say, I'm feeling overwhelmed. Instead of ghosting someone, you say, I need some space, but I don't want to disappear, right? Instead of scrolling endlessly, you put your phone down, and then you feel the boredom. And that feeling, that uncomfortable silence, it's not emptiness, it's space. Space for you to return. Because the man who went missing all those years ago, the boy who got hurt and silenced and told to toughen up, he's still there. And he's waiting, not for your protection or your perfection, and not for your certainty, but he's waiting for your presence. And the moment you stop abandoning him is the moment you stop saying, shut up, no one wants to hear that. And instead you start saying, I see you, and I want to know you. And that's when everything shifts. That's when the numbness begins to lift. And you start to feel again. Not because you tried harder, but because you stopped hiding. And you started telling the truth. And truth, it always makes room for love. Not the surface kind of love, not the performative kind of love, but the real kind. The kind that says, I want all of you. Not just your accomplishments, not just your stability, not just your silence. I want all of you. I want your hearts, right? Even though it's shaky and trembly, even the parts of you that are hurting, or the parts that have been buried, the parts that don't know how to receive all of you yet. This is intimacy, and you don't have to earn it. You just have to allow it. But allowing intimacy means allowing emotion. And allowing emotion means letting go of the idea that you're only lovable when you're fine. See, you're not loved because you're invulnerable. You're loved because you're real. And real is oftentimes messy. Real is inconsistent. Real takes practice. You're not late. You're not behind. You're not broken for not knowing how to do this yet. You're just learning how to come home to yourself. And healing is not a straight line. It's actually a slow, meandering return. A return to breath, a return to tears, a return to warmth, a return to feeling. And maybe you're scared, which is okay too. See, courage is not the absence of fear. It's the willingness to keep moving toward truth, even when fear says, don't do it. So what does this look like in real life though? Not just in theory, and not just like emotional language, but in daily practice. What does this look like? What does it mean to stop hiding behind fine and actually begin to feel again? It means checking in with your body before your calendar. It means noticing that tightness in your chest instead of powering through it. It means asking, what am I actually feeling right now? Even if the answer is, I have no idea. It means creating moments of stillness. Not to be productive, but just to practice being present. And maybe you take 5 minutes to sit with your hand on your chest and ask, what part of me have I been ignoring lately, today? And after the pause, having a conversation or reflecting, saying, did I feel safe in that exchange? Did I feel seen? This isn't emotional indulgence, it's emotional responsibility. Because when you don't know what you feel, then you act from impulses and you react from fear and you sabotage connection because you can't tell the difference between discomfort and danger. See, feeling again allows you to respond with choice. So you can say, this situation made me feel ashamed. Let me take a breath before I lash out. Or you can say, I feel unseen in this moment. Can I express where I was shutting down? Or you can say, I want closeness, but I'm scared. Can I stay open anyway? These are muscles that you're building, not just in your mind, but also in your body. Because healing isn't just mindset work, it's nervous system work. It's learning how to stay with a sensation instead of running and fleeing from it. It's learning that your heart racing doesn't always mean danger. And that lump in your throat doesn't mean that something's wrong. And that tears aren't a crisis. They're just a sign that you're alive. But to do this kind of work, you have to believe something even deeper. And that is, you are worthy of feeling. Not just when you're fixed, not just when you're lovable, not just when you're chosen, but right now. Even if you feel too much, even if it's messy, even if you've never done it before, you are worthwhile in this moment. And yes, there will be setbacks. Yes, you will shut down again sometimes. Yes, you'll say, I'm fine on autopilot. And you'll ghost someone and you'll deflect praise and you'll struggle to believe that you matter. That's okay. You're not here to do it perfectly. You're here to do it honestly. And honesty might sound like this. It might say, I'm struggling today. I want to be open, but I'm scared. Or I'm learning how to feel again. See, that's more than enough. And when you start living this way, something sacred begins to happen. And that is, you stop needing to be impressive. You stop craving approval like oxygen. You stop measuring your worth by how undemanding you are. And instead you start letting people in. Not just to the curated version of you, but to the actual you. And the people who can hold that, they're the ones worth keeping. Because here's the hard truth. Some people are only comfortable with your numbness, and they like that you're easy, that you don't ask for too much, that you never get emotional. But that's not love. That's convenience. See, love doesn't need you to disappear. Love actually wants you to show up. It wants you to show up fully and messily and emotionally. And if that scares someone off, that's clarity, not failure. You are allowed to take up emotional space, and you are allowed to feel. You're allowed to need. These aren't flaws. These are signs that you're human. And yes, it might feel foreign at first. You might worry that you're being too much. You might doubt yourself. But feeling always will feel familiar at first because it's the opposite of what hurt taught you. So it's okay to miss the numbness sometimes, to miss the simplicity of autopilot, right? To miss the comfort of fine. But when you come home to yourself, even in just one breath or one tear or one moment of softness, it's then that you remember that this is what you were made for. Not performance, not protection, not constant control, but presence, like connection and truth. And truth doesn't always feel good at first, but it always leads you somewhere better. Because the truth is this: you don't need to be fine. You actually just need to be free. You need to be free to feel, free to ask, free to belong. And the path isn't paved with perfection, it's paved with presence. Presence is where everything you've been chasing actually begins. So you want connection? It starts with presence. And you want intimacy? It starts again with presence. You want to feel yourself again, like you belong in your own body and in your own life? It starts with presence. And presence doesn't mean perfection. It just means that you stop running. You stop numbing, you stop editing, you stop hiding, being behind the progress and pretending that you're fine. And instead you slow down. Slow down enough to ask, what's real right now for me in this moment? Not what's polished, not what's convenient, not what sounds strong, but what sounds real. Perhaps it's grief or confusion. Maybe it's tenderness that you haven't let yourself feel in years. But whatever it is, if it's real, it's worth honoring. And honoring your realness is not about being dramatic or overwhelming people with emotion. It's about belonging to yourself first so that you can belong with others in truth, not performance. This is what integrity looks like in the emotional realm. Not pretending you're okay when you're not, and not saying I'm fine to avoid burdening others, and not hiding your feelings just so that you can seem stable. See, true emotional integrity means that your inside matches your outside. It means that you're being courageous enough to say, I'm not at my best right now. Or I want to be present, but I'm struggling. Or I need a moment to check in with myself. And that honesty, that's where trust is born. Because you can't trust someone who's numb. You can't trust someone who's always fine. And you can't feel close to someone who never lets you actually see what's real. And that includes you. You will never trust yourself if you keep abandoning your truth, right? And you'll never feel safe with your own skin, in your own skin, if your emotions have no place to land. So here's a radical invitation. Stop saying you're fine and start saying what's true. Even if it's messy, even if it's unfinished, even if it's just, I don't know how I feel in this moment, but I want to try practice. See, that's the doorway back to yourself. And from there, everything can change. You stop choosing relationships that only love the silent version of you. And you stop pouring energy into people who are allergic to your depth. And you stop shrinking your needs just so that you can be tolerated. And instead, you start living in wholeness. You start experiencing real connection because you're finally present for it. And you start recognizing not just the words that you're saying, but the experiences that you're feeling. You start experiencing not just what someone is saying, but also feeling in your body their intentions. That's what presence makes possible. And it's not out of reach. It's not for the more emotional people. And it's not too late for you to experience this. You just need the one thing, and that's a willingness to feel again, to let your emotions come back in. Not because you want to be ruled by them, but because you want to reclaim your humanity. And yes, it will be hard at first. It'll feel like stepping into the sunlight after years underground. It might sting and you might flinch. But keep going, because as your feelings return, so does your life. Colors get brighter, music hits deeper, moments feel richer, people feel closer, and you start realizing you were never broken. You were never too much. You were never unlovable. You were just numb. And now you're waking up. So the next time that someone asks, "How are you?" try not to default to fine, but instead pause and then check in and then say something real. Because the world does not need another perfectly managed man. The world needs men who are instead willing to feel, who are willing to show up honestly, who are willing to love deeply and to heal loudly. And that's not weakness, that is power. And that power, it starts the moment you stop hiding behind fine and instead start finding your way back to feeling. Let me know if you have any thoughts as you're listening to this episode. I'd love to engage with your ideas or your queries. Drop them in the comments below. See you in the next episode.